the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3.0, approval of the agenda, additions and deletions. Can I have a motion? So moved. Deb, second.
Second.
Kate, all right, any discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. Number 4, bond refinancing. We have Shelby McQuay with us from Ellers, and she's going to tell us all about it.
Yeah, so you issued bonds, let's see, I have the original here. Your general obligation alternative and capital facilities bonds that you issued in 2013, this was what the project was?
The air quality project, it was before my time.
Oh, yeah, the air quality project. It was an original bond issuance of $5.96 million, and there's about a little over $2 million to refund right now. And so if you recall from the most recent issue, usually when you issue, you want the bondholders to hold the bonds for a certain period of time. They like to know they're going to hold their money, and then that time is like 8 to 10 years. So then you come to that call date, and you can just refund for savings. You can also refinance to do some restructuring. There's nothing kind of in your overall long-term planning that needs to, we need to restructure for. So we'll just take the savings, a portion. The alternative facilities is the portion that sort of hits the taxes, and that will be then savings to the taxpayers. The other portion is the capital facilities bond, which is much smaller, but that debt service payment comes out of your operating capital. So whatever savings there will just, which is about $1,000 to $2,000 a year, will go to savings on your operating capital budget. The rest will be savings to the taxpayers. So, just our overall summary of the issuance as part of the pre-sale. I'm happy to answer any questions going through it, but this is just the same process that you went through when you issued the school building bonds. So there'll be a rating. We'll work with Sherry Kim to do, the official statement, that big document that goes to the bondholders. We'll have the rating call, a due diligence call. You do have an underlying rating of an A2, so hoping to affirm that, and that'll be good going into the market. I was just telling him before this that a lot of people are just sitting on cash waiting for new issuances. There's not a lot of trading going on in the secondary market right now, not a lot of yield on those bonds, and so they're all just hungry for some new issuance, which is what you'll be doing in November. So we'll sell those bonds in November. I'll be back with me or Greg on the week or on the 8th. So we'll sell bonds that morning through a competitive sale, and then be back to share the results with you, and you award just based on the lowest true interest cost. So whoever gives us the best bid. So we've factored in all the cost of issuance, and so the savings that we'll speak to are just net of that. Like I said, there's 2 portions of that with existing interest rates on the alternative facilities portion of 2.54 and similar 2.56 on the capital facilities portion is the average outstanding interest rate. We're anticipating a 0.99 for the new issuance, so that's where we're going to generate some savings. Also through a premium, so this is when the bondholders pay more than the par amount of the bonds, and that's that then reduces how much you have to borrow in order to pay off that full amount. So estimating savings of about $44,000, so right around $10,000 a year for the next 4 years. So it's not reflected in your truth and taxation statements. It'll be on your final levy when you certify in December. That's where the savings will show up. So, so that's it. And you have a resolution to adopt tonight that just authorizes the issuance of bonds. It authorizes you to go through the motions to participate in the credit enhancement program, so you get that kind of bond insurance that the state has, where the state will step in on your behalf, and then you're authorizing others us to facilitate the issuance.
Anybody have any questions? Well, I'm glad Ellers is figuring all of that.
Yes. It's a fun time of year where you just save money.
Good. So then you'll be back in November or December, did you say?
November.
November, okay.
I would say, I'm gonna ask the question this way. If you were to tell the community people who aren't involved in this all the time, if you had 2 statements to make, Sam, here's where you write this down, are you with us?
I hear you.
What would you say are the top 2 things the community should know?
The district has taken the opportunity to refinance their bonds for savings, and the majority of the savings is going to go back to the taxpayers through a lower levy.
So you're estimating the 44,000, but
Yep.
it'll depend what we get at the end there.
Yeah, the rates have just been crazy low right now, so it's been kind of fun to, I mean, we're estimating a 0.99% interest rate for over the 4 years, so anything lower than the 0.99% will just increase that $44,000 of savings.
Okay, and so that's locked in then for that 4-year period?
Yep, after that time, yeah, and then they'll be non-callable at that time, so there won't be an opportunity in the future to call those for maturities.
Good. Any other questions?
Did I get my 2 sentences?
Yeah.
Savings to the taxpayers.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
We put Shelby at the beginning, she has a neighboring school she needs to go meet with next, so
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Spread more good news.
I know,
Yeah, all right.
yeah, that worked out really well. Thanks for being so close. I'd like to see more projects.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Number 5, public comment. We have, is it Brittany?
It is, yeah.
Go ahead, 3 minutes.
All right. So my name's Brittany. I do have kids at McRae, but I would like to propose a discussion of moving the school dismissal time from ending at 4 p.m. to ending at 3:30. After last year's change in having a 3:30 end of the school day time, I strongly believe students and our McRae community benefited from an earlier release, and we should move forward with reconsidering this end period. Even though we are a 4-day school week, we are undeniably substantially over required contact hours. As a district, we have 1,272 student contact hours. State requirements for student contact hours for middle schoolers and high schoolers are 1,020 hours. State requirements for elementary students are 935 hours. If we ended our school day at 3:30 instead of 4 p.m., we would still have 1,192 contact hours. If we had 5 e-learning days due to snow, we would still be over contact hours by 35 hours. There are many benefits to an earlier release time, but a significant reason to consider earlier dismissal is the lateness of students being on the bus. With some students on the bus until 5 p.m., these particular students are on the bus into what is dusk or evening into our fall and winter months. This is a safety concern. Another substantial consideration is that as an elementary parent, I have read countless of studies that show time and time again that free playtime is crucial for child development. As an interested in education individual, I'm sure you have read these studies too. With appropriate bedtimes per age in mind and the necessity of family meals, or at the very least time for nourishment, a late dismissal hinders these very students. My last point to share with you today is the fact that high school students and faculty that coach are often leaving school at 3:30 for sports. These students are repeatedly missing the same classes, oftentimes multiple times a week. This affects both student academics and participation in sports. Please consider this change for the benefit of our students. I'm not saying we need to start dismissing early immediately, but this is absolutely something that we should discuss further. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Brittany. Okay, number 6 is our consent agenda. I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, Scott, second.
Second.
Kate? All right, any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest that we have Dan present some information on the change order. if that's okay at this point.
Okay,
before
item
you
number
vote on
six,
that.
613 there, change order, okay.
Yeah,
And then I have a question also, too.
On that item?
No,
Oh,
on different
oh,
items.
okay.
Yep,
Okay.
so if Dan wants to go
All right.
first, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll skip ahead to that, my little presentation. So, in April, they voted on the levels for consent on change orders or approval. And after the state plan review, I think I kind of explained this once we got the pricing on that. This single contractor goes above the $125,000 that the POC can approve. Just getting into the details, this is the steel stud and drywall contractor. So, also word, probably not. Oh, there we go. So in the plan review with the architect, kind of going back and forth when they submitted the plan, they came up with a code where a double firewall was required for a fire barrier in between where the existing building becomes kind of the interior of the new addition, and also around the storm shelter gym, well, the whole gym, the triple gym. So TSP, the architect, questioned the state, and I kind of talked to some of our other projects, and there's been some inconsistency. So TSP kind of went back, and after further discussion, it's required. So we got the pricing back from Regal, and I just wanted to go over, we scrutinized these prices pretty hardcore. We had a discussion with Regal, figured out their price per square foot, which was all reasonable. This was my area of concern, but after discussing it with them, if you can imagine the fireproofing and everything that goes along with, they gotta go frame around all the I-beams in the gym, in between the storm shelter here. So the labor is really what up to their price per square foot. And then here's that taller area where the commons is. The rest of it kind of was in line, and when he explained, you know, the different, how much labor goes into framing around all these joists, and then getting the caulking for the fire stopping, that's kind of where this price got to where it's at. So the other items are when we do change orders to a contractor, we kind of accumulate them, so we're not doing paperwork on every single little change. So the other change orders, I don't know if the sheets are in there, but the one was approved, the $29,000 was approved when we approved the classroom additions, so that's already covered. So basically we're looking for approval on $216,004. The other ones are pretty minimal, $401 for adding some framing where they had to change dimensions of the room, and I believe the other one is they added a couple doors, so the drywall and framer have to frame the door in. So are there any questions on that?
Is this something that TSP was not aware of when we put the plan together?
Correct.
Okay.
It was, and I talked, like I said, with some of our internal people at ICS, and it's, this double wall code is kind of, the last couple of years, it's been hit and miss. But this particular job reviewer, or plan reviewer, it's something that he held true. And they questioned, TSP put in some time going back and forth, and you just can't argue with the state when it comes down to that, so.
So what is this was change order 1, right?
Yeah.
That we have approved?
Yep, I forgot to get it on the consent agenda. I know I
No worries.
explained it back in, I think it was April when we
Yep.
got this pricing, so.
What is an average number that many projects have? Because it happens, things get missed and,
This was a big one, because I think the total for our state plan review was like around 300,000. But, I mean, if it's in the plans, it would have been in the pricing. And sometimes you actually get lucky, because if they're marking up, their overhead and profit is contracted to only 10%. So sometimes if it's an ad and they were maybe at 15% on their original bid, so it's hard to say. what their bid would have came in had this wall been spotted, but this is typical, talking with, like some of our other projects, it's come up. Just with the inconsistency of the plan reviewers, they have so many, I think they have like 10 different reviewers, and different ones read the code certain ways. So TSP was really surprised, and they put in a lot of effort to get answers for it, so.
So with all the moving parts that do happen, what is kind of an average number of change orders per project that you might anticipate to expect?
Let's see here. Right now, we're going in on number 2 with a lot of the contractors. When you get 4 or 5 that are around, it might be $1,200 to add this or that. A project this size, you might have 100 individual situations that draw change orders, but each contractor, depends what they're doing. The drywaller will be involved in a lot of them, if you change soffits and stuff. So the drywaller will probably have maybe 20, but like the flooring person might have 4 if you don't change the flooring too much. So depends on the contractor.
So is the process then, if we have any other, because again, there's so many moving parts and things get missed and whatnot, but if there's some other big change orders, is that something then that the POC can go back and say, hey, then we need to really take a look at, do we continue going forward with this so that we're not so far over budget then? Because sometimes those change orders can really push the envelope then.
Yep, we've been keeping an eye on them, and actually when they are larger, we kind of get an explanation, and so far, none of them have been close to this amount. It's
Okay, it happens.
Well, we do have contingency funds for things
yeah,
like this.
and that's and with those value engineering, and that when I go into the budget, I'll kind of show you where we're at with contingency. That actually has this covered already in the budget. So,
And would you say we're kind of on par with other school districts you've worked with as far as where we're at with change orders, and there's nothing like,
budget-wise, I would say we're doing better than most, just with the value engineering we did with that terrazzo tile, if you remember that, and then those electrical items. I would say we're doing pretty awesome. So.
All right, any other questions? You'll have a report after we vote on this too. You'll be doing your other report.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we got a motion.
I can have a...
You have another question on this item?
No, a different item.
Oh, on a different item on this section. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
I did email Sherry about this and just had a question. In the past, just the pep band contract and whatnot, I know included in there has always been the summer marching band and whatnot. And I know COVID this last year really threw a wrench into things and whatnot, but it's even been previous years before that we've not had the band at our local community celebrations. And that's been kind of a negative image in a lot of the communities and whatnot because of that. And so I've heard some comments about, especially this last fall when we had our Harvest Festival again, that if the band wants to go on a trip to Florida, they're going to be marching. So if we can send them to Florida to march in Disneyland, why couldn't they march locally in our small communities? And so I just said to Sherry, I think what we should either do is we remove that piece from the contract, otherwise we need to have accountability within the contract. And now he hasn't been paid for it because we have not had marching bands because of COVID. But also, again, I think we should just be realistic in the contract. If it's not going to happen, then remove it, or if it is, then the expectation should be that the bands are available, or the band is available, so.
All right. Anything else anybody's got in this section?
So I'm just wondering if there's a comment then, or is that something that we can just turn it over to admin then, and you guys can figure that out?
And I was thinking, if we got 3 negotiators here, it's up to them to negotiate with the teachers union about taking that out of the contract. That's kind of where I was coming.
Okay.
What I was
Sure.
thinking, Debbie.
Okay.
It's just when they meet, and the president of the union here, Megan Sunderland, I don't know if you guys know her, president of the union. But I think that's something that we'll take up with them. That's kind of a note that I put in my
Thank you.
working document was, if they're not doing it, why is it even in the contract?
Right.
Yeah, it depends if you think pep band is the same as marching band too. It could be two different things, right?
Yeah, pep band is the winter months and playing at basketball games, so.
Is it
But
this
there
spring
is-
that they're planning a band trip, or did we miss that?
You know what?
It's coming up, I think. I think they've talked about it.
Possibly, yeah. I think I might have mentioned in a board update that Joel asked about a trip with band people, and I asked superintendents, and what the superintendent said is they're all gonna, FFA is another one. Are they gonna travel this year? And the answer is yeah, they're gonna let their students travel, but one, they gotta follow the rules of the places they go. If they need a vaccination to get into a place, they have to go with a vaccination or proof of that or proof of a negative test. So that's, I think, that's what initiated that.
Yeah,
That information was the work we had done on, and possibly a short trip. I don't know that they're thinking Florida necessarily, they're just thinking about a trip maybe.
I just think it's a real big sense of pride for our small communities to have the band show up. Even if it's 4 or 5 people, you can make a joyful noise, so.
So that's my idea, to turn it
Yeah.
over to that
Perfect.
question over to the
Yep.
negotiators and they're
Awesome.
working.
Thank you.
All right, is that it for questions on our 6.0 consent agenda? All right, let's take a vote then. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion's carried there. All right, now on 7.0 communication reports, I guess, Dan, you're up again.
All right. I'll have to start this over somehow. All right, so I don't have a ton of stuff. Just schedule. We're definitely on schedule. We're doing pretty good. Just where we're at, we have interior framing kind of in the serving kitchen and middle school classroom addition area with plumbing and electrical rough-ins getting set in the framing. The exterior framing's kind of wrapping around the kindergarten pre-K wing and coming back up to the elementary. So they're working on the weather barriers, sheeting's going up. So it's won't be long and the whole building will be enclosed. Over on the west side, theater footings are going in. Over here you can see that from the parking lot. Precast will probably be the last week of September, so that'll be pretty cool. That whole structure should be up around then. Elementary wing, the steel's finishing up, so as the exterior framers get around pre-K, they'll wrap right around there. And everyone's just kind of how we're keeping on schedule. Is everyone's just following each other, and it's working out pretty well. Considering how big of a project it is, and we're able to keep crews on site with each contractor, so that's good. Roofing's moving along very well. I think all 3 gyms are complete. So wherever we're getting enclosed, it's watertight. I would say 50% of the addition already. So that's going well. Not much is changed with the budget. I was getting August numbers in here for the cost to date, so that's not up to date. I had a snafu, so I'll bring that next time. These will be a little more realistic, as there's been another billing since then. But the one number that we were talking about is the contingency. So this number here, I believe last time we were updated, it was around 200,000. So some of the changes that have added up, we're at about 280,000, which we're still doing pretty well. That does reflect the credits and everything, so that's after the credits. So we're at about 1.2 million still in contingency. Like I've said before, with the big remodels of the locker room and the kitchen with all those floors coming out, we're gonna wanna keep a pretty healthy contingency, but for sure by this time next year, we'll see what funds are left and kind of the enhancements you can add to the classrooms. So, and then there's also the overall project balance of $87,000. Is there any questions? So no big speed bumps or anything in the schedule or the budget right now. And we'll save the tour. A, it's rainy, and B, if we wait a month, there's gonna be awesome stuff to look at. There'll be sheet rocking in the new addition, and it'll just be, you've seen enough of the steel and the dirt, so, well, mud tonight, so that's all I have.
Say, did the cabinets ever come for the front office?
The reception?
The reception area?
Yep.
They did, okay, all right.
It was the nick of time, wasn't it?
Did they show up before school started?
Yeah.
Before
They literally, move their computers over and kids started coming in, it seemed like, but.
How about the fax lab?
Academic
kitchen?
Yeah, academic kitchen, yes.
Yep,
sorry.
so there was a little hiccup on the hood systems because they're more commercial than residential, tying them into the school controls. So they should be done, I believe, this week. They need to get tested by
Inspector.
Cliff, the state inspector, will be doing it, and then Summit Fire Protection will be in, that's who's contracted through the mechanical contractor to do that test. So there's a lot that goes into those hood systems. It's not like the residential ones that used to be. So there's electronics, and Wilmer, I believe, is finished up. So now it's getting just the Ansel system basically. So
And when you say Wilmer, you mean roofing?
Wilmer Electric.
Electric, okay.
Sorry. I'm so used to just throwing their names out there. The electrical
If you said
contractor.
names, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, you know their first names.
Yeah.
But
So does the change order for all that sheet rocking and that fireproofing, does that impact the sprinkler people at all?
no, I don't believe they had any ads, but there was quite, I mean, overall it was like 300,000, but those change orders are smaller, so this one for this contractor far exceeded that 125,000. So,
All right. Any other questions for Dan? No? Okay, 7.2, Jim's not here. How about Denise? Can you?
Yep, I'm here. I'll try to be shorter and wiser than Jim. Did my report end up in the packet?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, it did, okay. Well, we had a crazy busy summer. All the numbers reflect that. All the camps were well attended. Summer rec, our numbers were really good again this year. We tried to cover a lot of different gamuts of the ages and so forth. We provided activity bags for ECFE kids in June and July. That went well. You can see the camps. We did tennis, basketball, dance, golf. Mitch did the golf one. Baseball, softball, football, and wrestling. So we covered just about every sport that we offer at McRae. Wolverine workout we had. We offered more adult programming this summer. I know pickleball. Kim and Julie had done some of that. And we actually put lines on the tennis courts over in Raymond. So we wanted that to be promoted, that anyone from the community can use them anytime they want. We actually had a pickleball league on Tuesday nights. Sand volleyball and doubles tennis went well. Again, we offered night baseball. Summer rec, we had those changes where everything was in Raymond because of the construction, and we offered shuttle busing for Maynard and Clare City, and that went really well. There's always a few bugs when you make that huge of a change, but it really went well, and once you got that routine established, it seemed like families really had that figured out. We offered T-ball this summer. Debbie and Brian Brandt took the lead on that. I think that was just a real hit. I don't know if Debbie wants to mention your thoughts on that at all, but it went really, really well.
It was awesome. I think we had probably 35 to 50 kids every night, and not just the kids, but the parents and the grandparents, and everybody came and cheered them on. We played a game, and the last game, then they striped the field, and it was just kind of like big stuff and whatnot. So we had little treats for the kids afterwards, but you know, we talked with Denise about some equipment that I think we can open our pocketbook for a little bit, like batting helmets and things like that, just so that we've got enough to keep the kids in the dugouts and keep them safe. But yeah, it was fun. Looking forward to next year too.
Yeah, really well. So it was a really good summer. This fall has been busy. We did a new activity for 3rd and 4th graders. We're going to play football league in Wilmer, and we have 37 kids out for that. So we made 4 teams actually for that, and they play on Thursday nights. We all always go to the parents for volunteers, and I just want to mention the volunteer coaches for that is Tyler Degner, Jake Gora, Adam Hass, Lucas Post, and Troy Thiessen. We again are doing 56ers tackle football this fall. We're in a league called the 212 League with RCW, Bold, and YME. We also play games with the Wilmer teams. We have 28 players for that. Our parent coach volunteers are Sean Nerney, Mark Schlusky, Nate Horn, and Joel Ginnenson. So that's going really, really well. But it's been a busy fall, but that's all good. And we have numbers for our programming. The fall booklet did come out last couple weeks ago. Pass it around. Some changes with that. We're going to do more quarterly ones. We have found that it's a little bit easier for people to plan maybe 2 or 3 months out versus 5 to 6 months out. So that's a change. I think that'll go well. And the other huge change is we've decided not to send it out to all box holders, and that's going to save the school district about $6,000. It doesn't seem like it should add that much, but when you think about printing and mailing them out to box holders, it really does add up. So I think that'll be a good cost savings. But we're still going to market it through social media, sending flyers home with elementary children. I am going to print some out for the libraries, so we're still going to get the word out. Use the newspaper just to put something in there that says check out the website for the up-to-date programming for that. One of the fall programs that we're starting is called SAIL program. It's a nationwide program that stands for Staying Active and Independent for Life. It's really geared for community members that are 65 plus, and it's about balance and trying just to live independently. And that's going to start next week on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We're so thankful Bethany is always a partner with the school. We're willing to have it up there because it's from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning. So we needed an off-site location for that. But I'm writing some SHIP grants to cover the expenses with that for weights and some of the other things that we've had to do to make that class affordable for people. Our youth scholarship program, for all our youth programming, we always offer scholarships to make it affordable for everyone. We did get a 2180 Foundation grant for $1,000, and then we try to do concessions to raise other money. The community garden has gone well. All the pots were filled again. God's Garden has just been the overseer of the garden in so many ways, and they donate all their produce to the food shelf. So that's another great connection. For facility use, Harvest Fest softball tournament was held in August, and they used our fields over in Raymond. The Girl Scouts have used the elementary at West and East for recruitment meetings, and Zach Nelson is doing a fall youth baseball league that he's using our facilities for. When it's a nonprofit organization, we don't charge, but for like Zach Nelson, which is a for-profit thing, then we do charge. When they're large scale like that, we negotiate a price with them versus an arm agreement. And as far as facilities, we're doing Briggs Motley again in November and April, so working on a contract with them for that. Any questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. All right, you're Mitchell Kent, elementary principal, 2 minutes.
All right. For us, we've had our new reading curriculum that we purchased. Has been being used by grades 1 through 5, and we're still receiving some of the materials for that kind of daily. Different boxes are coming in here. We're getting that to the classrooms as we get it. We had a virtual staff training for that new reading curriculum, and that was on Friday, September 3rd. And then that training was also recorded for any staff that were unable to make it, being we did not have school that day. We had our first problem-solving team meeting, and that took place on Thursday, September 2nd, and we have our next meeting tomorrow morning. With that, that's usually on Tuesdays. Then we had our first elementary September staff meeting, and that took place on Wednesday, September 1st. And the first portion of that staff meeting, we had Seth Johnson from Woodland Centers come in, and he presented on helpful approaches and interventions for students. I thought he did really well. And then he's also going to send an email out to staff talking about the steps they need to take if they would want to refer one of the students, or different things that they can look at it for that a student, different signs or that a student might show if they think that they should be meeting with him as well. We had first and third grade students had hand washing presentation, and that was done through Countryside Public Health, and that was the very end of August at East and West. We had vision and hearing screenings for kindergarten to third grade and then fifth grade, and that took place on August 31st and September 1st. We had our first lockdown drill of the year at both elementary buildings, and for that we practiced just a soft, and then we transitioned that into a hard lockdown, and that went very well at each of the buildings. Students at each site had bus safety with Palmer at the very beginning of September. And Sonia Stark has been working with elementary EL students, and she started her schedule of working with them, and she's being helped by Jamie Holgren with that. And then upcoming events, we just have homecoming this week. Elementary is going to be participating in some dress-up days in each site. Midterm is already on Wednesday. Picture retakes are going to be at each site on Thursday, September 3rd. For any of those who were not able to make it for open house night. And then we're going to be celebrating Walk to School Day on Wednesday, October 6th at each site. Any questions with that?
No questions? All right, thanks, Mitchell. Doug Wheatley, high school principal. Next.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Traditional format for me, under student support. Just kicking off the year, the open house was awesome. It's so wonderful to have everybody back in the building. You can see parents and kids walking around, and just the environment was fantastic. Always trying to find ways to kind of improve the flow of things. We did have a little bit of a hiccup with the pictures this year. One of our cameras broke, so the line for pictures was a bit tedious, but they ended up getting it fixed. And once that happened, things seemed like they evened out pretty good. We had a welcome back orientation for all the high school grades. Student council's going, NHS applications are going to be going out here pretty quick. So we're rocking and rolling when it comes to student support. When it comes to staff support, just again talking about some of the meetings, having staff meetings, planned ones. We had one that was unplanned, just to cover a topic that we felt we needed to go over. Professional learning communities is something we're going to be kicking off here pretty quick, and I'm really kind of heading the direction of looking at assessment. So instead of getting too far into the weeds in this meeting, I just threw some examples of what assessment looks like in the report for you. And then the third bullet point under staff support, where I talk about the cabinet meeting, that's something that I'm kind of excited, well, I'm more than excited about it. It's an opportunity to bring district departments together at the high school level and talk about some of the things that we have that are upcoming. So for instance, Veterans Day. We'll start talking about Veterans Day at our next cabinet meeting, so that none of those elements of Veterans Day are going to be something that comes up and surprises us. So it's just a way to kind of future cast what we have going on, what we need to do, and how we're going to attack those elements. So so far it's paid dividends for us. And then under the upcoming, this is going to be a busy week for us, starting with coronation tonight. So we've got that going on. Please feel free to join us if you'd like. And then ending the week with the game and then dance. I would like to note that the dance is going to be free. Usually there's a charge to cover a DJ and those kinds of things, but we've opened it up, and hopefully the kids can have a good time with that. A couple workshops there for you to look at, and then the last thing that Mr. Kent mentioned that I planned on talking about was midterm. Okay, you think about where we're at in the school year already. 6 weeks, we're going into our 6th week with teachers. 5th week with students. We're already an 1/8 of the year done. And that kind of reality just goes, this school year absolutely flies by. And I was thinking about it as I was sitting here, I'm like, oh, yeah, oh my gosh, okay. Wow, the rest of the year is just going to scream. So really excited about it. I think things are going really good. For me personally, the adjustment to the high school, I feel, has gone really well. Every day is a little bit different, and we're attacking it, and it's going well. So, you have any questions for me? Thank you.
All right, Sherry, our superintendent.
So I'm super excited about number 1 in my report, and I give huge kudos to Dan and Brad We hear a lot in society about, how come schools aren't tending to vocational education for kids, and that's not the case here. In addition to a lot of the projects that are a part of this construction work, like adding to our academic kitchen and adding to our vocational ag department, Dan and Brad have been so awesome with getting kids on the job. And we have a bright young student of ours who's a senior, wasn't sure what to do, got him out on a welding visit for a couple of hours. And Sam, is it coming out in the paper this week, or are you waiting till next week? Do you know?
I think it's coming. Billy wrote it, but I think it's coming out this week.
Okay. It's why we do what we do. We're a school, so why not use the school construction project to help kids learn about what they can do later in life? So this young man that did the welding, it was a 2-hour plus safety training. And the two guys, what was the company? It was Spartan Steel out of St. Bonnie.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
The foreman.
God, we're awesome with him. And he came out of that, and I saw a different kid. I saw a kid that came out of that, and he was confident. He knew what he was going to do. He enjoyed the experiment. He asked how much do they get paid? Where do you work? Do you work away from home? So it's coming out in the paper soon and very soon. The other
one
yeah.
thing, it's really cool to see the guys that got to work with him, because it lightens their day too. After he left, they do the same thing day in and day out, but when they see a young kid like that, it was rewarding for them. So up in their step.
Absolutely. And Sydney Tyne did that job shadow with TSP Architect for almost a whole day. It was almost 5 hours. I was a little nervous that maybe it looked a little boring, but in talking to the architect afterward, he said she asked so many awesome questions about, like, what should I be doing now to be ready to do this? Because she was very interested. What classes should I be taking? Where would I work? I believe he pulled out, you saw those papers that hung from the construction desk in the trailer, and I think they had an issue going on that day with something with plumbing, something with roofing, and I can't remember, and architect. And they worked together to resolve the issue, and yeah, loving it. This week, is it Wednesday you're doing the safety training for our construction class?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in my little report, but yeah.
Do you want to just join in on my report?
Sure. So Wednesday we're gonna talk with or have the construction class. We'll go grab them, escort them to the trailer, and then just treat them like they're contractors going through that initial safety training. And then Brad and I are gonna present on what it entails to be a project manager, and then he'll jump in with job supervisor, just kind of give them an overview of the whole project. And then the following Wednesday, they'll have their safety training signed off on, and then we'll bring them on a tour and just kind of, wherever they have interest, we'll stop and be at a safe distance. And most of the foremen on this job are pretty cool, so if they have questions, we can probably just grab them. So it should be a pretty cool deal. And then we're going to set up welding, I think, probably.
Well, the welding class, the whole class.
Yeah, with the welding class, we're gonna do the same thing when we get a little more action going on, because they're finishing up here on the elementary, so when they get over here on the commons and there's more stuff for them to look at and observe, so that'll be.
So you think about all the pieces of this, from masonry to steel to welding to concrete. Concrete and masonry are different, right?
Yeah.
And all the pieces of it, plumbing, electrical, roofing. And these kids in this construction class are going to get to see a piece of everything, and hopefully something will pique their interest while they do it, and then we're going to let them go out and do another kind of a sub job shadow, if you will, later on as time goes on. So we're listening, Judd's listening, I'm listening, Ben Johnson, Kayla, they're all listening for when our kids indicating any kind of interest. So super. Probably one of the most exciting things I've ever done in education is open kids' eyes to these possibilities. Well, thank you for that. COVID continues. right? I guess to put this into just a couple of sentences, we are going on a case-by-case basis. And so far, it's working well. You know, last year we had this COVID decision tree, and okay, this is what you do then, this is what you do here, here's the flow chart, yes, here's the flow chart, no. And this year we're going, okay, well, let's use an example of if you have 5 people in your house and you have 1 bathroom, and 1 person has COVID, you can't isolate. You can't isolate away. So everybody has to quarantine. If you have 3 people in your house, mom and dad and whatever, 6th grader, and mom has COVID, mom can go if you have more than 1 bathroom and a bedroom away from everybody, and they can isolate and everybody else can go on with their life. So that's what's been going on. That's how we've been working with this. Now we're getting into a trickier part. I think I might have said only 2 sentences, didn't I? Sorry. The trickier part where we're running, there's not subs in the world. There's not teacher subs. There's not para subs. That's what's gonna, so we're trying to be creative in this, trying to be creative when we get to the point where teachers start getting sick, if and when that happens, right? So, a couple other things. September 27th, 21, Judd and Mitch and I are working on the in-service for that day for teachers. And I'm again, like I said earlier, Megan's here. I'm glad Megan is willing to meet with me once a week. We talk about things that are going on, what's working, what do we need to tweak, any ideas. So I appreciate that. Probably 15 minutes, sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes, but I think that's a proactive way to work with the teachers and the administration. And so far it's been every week, hasn't it? I think let's do it once a month.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else for me?
Just a quick question. How does the president's new mandate does it impact the schools if you have an organization of over 100 staff, that if they're not vaxxed, then they have to do weekly testing? Does that impact the
I have not, you know what, our nurse is one of our COVID coordinators, and so when it gets to specifics like that, I leave that up to her. And I haven't availed myself of that information yet from the president.
A little bit in do you get the MSBA clippings that come every day? There was a little bit in there about that, and I did not read it very close, but something about whether your state follows the OSHA standards for that, and there's like 28 of them that do, or 38 or something, and I didn't read it any further than that. So,
and if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, our IEA guy, our environmental person, is going to be meeting with our nurse Thursday about OSHA issues with COVID and making sure that they're covering those. A lot of it has to do with keeping our nurse safe. So.
Any more questions for Sherry? Number 7.3, committee reports, negotiations report, and I can speak to that a little bit. That's just slowed down a bit, trying to put on hold a little bit. The group is looking for some more information, some clarification on specific items that are going to impact some of the things they want to discuss. So I'm just kind of waiting till that they get the information we need, or they're ready to come back. So that's where that's at. Otherwise, I don't have anything else on negotiations, unless somebody else does. 8.0, discussion items. What do we got here? Okay. Nothing there. 9.0, business.
Can I go back to discussion?
Sure.
Just wondering if maybe it's something that the board might be interested in to get more information as per Brittany's public comment. Is that something that the board would be interested in or not?
More information on what?
On Brittany's public comments.
Oh, for the 3:30 dismissal?
Yeah. If that's something that we want more information on or not, I think if we could just briefly discuss about that and then ask the admin to look into it for, I don't know if it's this year, I think about I know you've given a lot of good reasons why, but also the lack of availability of childcare and the cost of childcare. I think there's a lot of things to weigh out, the scheduling that's already been happening, but I just don't want to dismiss something if it's something that the rest of the board would be interested in. So just want to throw that out there.
Okay, 9.0, business items. 9.1 is to approve that second reading of policy 506, which is student discipline. Need a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Scott, all right, second?
Second.
Kate, all right, any discussion on that item? If not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries. 9.2 is to certify the levy for the maximum amount, and that's what Shelby was talking about here on refinancing these bonds. So that's a resolution.
No,
It's not?
No.
Oh, all right.
The certifying, the levy for the maximum amount, usually I have a little form in there, but MDE's website is not working, so I don't have the form yet, but this is the preliminary certifying the levy.
Okay.
And then in December, we do the final of the
Okay,
actual
I
numbers.
misunderstood her then. I was like,
Yeah.
the
And I
resolution
think-
comes later then. Okay.
Yep, and actually, I think I didn't get that on here, that would be 8.5.
That's not for the bond refinance.
This one is not, no.
Okay.
We'll have to
Alright.
make a new one, 8.5 for the bond refinance. I had it in there.
That was
So
another
9.5. 9.5?
9.5, I mean, yeah.
I'll make a motion to certify the.
We're not gonna have the audit start the same day as the board meeting next year, just so you know.
Okay.
Sorry,
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
all right. Okay, go ahead, Lee.
Yep, I'll make a motion to certify the levy for the maximum amount.
Okay, second, anyone?
Second.
Okay. Mel? All right, any discussion on that item? Okay, if not, we'll take a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries on that one. All right, 9.3, approve first and final reading of policy 102, which is equal educational opportunity. Need a motion?
Motion.
Okay, Tate, second.
Second.
Scott, all right, any discussion or question on that item? Now we'll vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, the motion carries. 9.4, approve first and final reading of policy 406, public and private personnel data.
I'll make a motion to approve the first and final reading of policy 406.
All right, Scott, second.
Second.
Carmel. All right. Any questions, discussion on that item?
May I just add, please, that I'm curious how you like the red line that shows
Yes,
the
yes,
changes?
yes.
Kind of,
Yes.
and this doesn't work for all of them, because some of the policies that we just update, there's really nothing to change,
Right.
but these have significant updates from legislation last spring, so, yeah, okay.
Yep, that was easy to follow, so, okay. Anything else? If not, those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries. So are we gonna do 9.5?
The resolution.
So that is a resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the bond refinancing, resolution 9.5. So I need a motion. So moved. Jen, you said that? All right, a second.
Second.
Wayne? Okay, I imagine this has to be read. So if you're ready, do we want to read it and then do discussion, or? I suppose. All right, go ahead. So you want to read that, Jeff, then?
Oh, I don't have my bifocals with, so.
Well, I can do it.
Wrong set of glasses.
All right, I'll find it here.
Cheaters will.
I'll find it. Okay. Member Pike,
Every meeting.
that sounds like a good excuse.
Remember that one, right?
Remember that, all right. All right.
Did you want me to pull?
Okay, Member Deb Brand introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Resolution providing for the sale of general obligation alternative facilities and capital facilities refunding bonds, Series 2021A, and covenanting and obligating the district to be bound by and to use the provisions of Minnesota statutes, Section 126C.55, to guarantee the payment of the principal and interest on these bonds. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 2180, McRae Public Schools, Minnesota, as follows. Number one, bond authorization. The school board has determined that it is necessary and expedient to issue $2,355,000 of general obligation alternative facilities and capital facilities refunding bonds, Series 2021A. Number two, the sale. The district has retained Ehlers and Associates Incorporated in Roseville, Minnesota, as its independent municipal advisor for the bonds. Ehlers is authorized to solicit proposals in accordance with Minnesota statutes, Section 475.60 and Subdivision 2.9. If the issuance of the bonds is approved, the school board shall meet at the time and place specified in the official statement to receive and consider proposals for the purchase of the bonds. Number three, official statement, negotiation of sale. Ehlers is authorized to prepare and distribute an official statement and to open, read, and tabulate the proposals for presentation to the board. Number four, Minnesota School District Credit Enhancement Program. A, the district hereby covenants and obligates itself to notify the Commissioner of Education of potential default in the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, and to use the provisions of Minnesota statutes, Section 126C.55, to guarantee payment of the principal and interest on the bonds when due. The district further covenants to deposit with the registrar or any successor paying agent 3 days prior to the date on which a payment is due, an amount sufficient to make that payment, or to notify the Commissioner of Education that it will be unable to make all or a portion of that payment. The registrar for the bonds is authorized and directed to notify the Commissioner of Education if it becomes aware of a potential default in the payment of principal or interest on the bonds, or if any, or if on the day two, if on the day 2 business days prior to the date a payment is due on the bonds, there are insufficient funds to make that payment on deposit with the registrar. The district understands that as a result of its covenant to be bound by the provision of Minnesota statute, Section 126C.55, the provisions of that section shall be binding as long as any bonds of this issue remain outstanding. B, the district further covenants to comply with all procedures now and hereafter established by the Departments of Management and Budget and Education of the state of Minnesota pursuant to Minnesota statute, Section 126C.55, Subdivision 2C, and otherwise to take such actions as necessary to comply with that section. The chair, clerk, and superintendent or business manager is authorized to execute any applicable Minnesota Department of Education forms. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by member, I don't remember who that was.
Lane?
Was it
Lane.
Was it Lane? All right, Lane H. Witters, and upon the vote being taken thereon, the following voted in favor thereof. Okay, let's do voice vote. Kate?
Yes.
Yes.
Carmel? Myself, yes. Scott?
Yes.
And Lane?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The following voted for that. We had no one voting against, so the resolution is duly passed and adopted. That's it. Number 10, upcoming meetings. We've got a regular board meeting October 11th, regular board meeting November 8th, truth and taxation presentation is on the 13th, and that is before the regular board meeting on that same evening.
So is October 11th Columbus Day?
Yeah.
Is that
Probably,
that we have a meeting on that? I can't remember what that
I
was.
think we voted to change that one other time, so I think we're still good on that. Okay, any other comments?
I disagree.
With what?
I agree with Deb that administration should look over that comment on the 3:30 dismissal, because I've heard that from other parents too.
Okay.
That they favor it?
Yes.
I think it'd be nice if we could have like a pros and cons sort of a thing. What would be good about, I know it's additional instructional time also, and I know some of our testing scores might indicate that that could be very beneficial for students also, but I definitely hear all the reasons why too, so I just, yeah.
What's the timeline on that? By when?
Oh, I mean, that'd be, I don't know if you'd even do it this year, it'd be for next year probably, huh?
Oh, for the next school year? Because we wouldn't
Yeah.
change it in the middle
No,
of the year.
no,
Right.
I wouldn't. Right. So are you saying you hear other people say they like the late time or no?
I'm just saying, I think we should take a look at the pros and the cons to it. What are the
Right.
benefits? Because sometimes,
But it started last year, right? With COVID stuff.
yeah.
And the distance
And that was for
learning and all that.
teachers
Yeah.
for distance learning,
Right.
had an extra 30
Yeah.
minutes up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe it might even be sometime this year we send a survey out to parents, just to find out, to get your feedback. Is it just a few parents that want it and the majority don't, or vice versa, or,
And the why, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that's good. And then something like that could be implemented next school year, after we get all that data. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Carmel, second?
Yep.
Lane. All right, it's 7:01. Thank you, everybody. Vote. Oh, we gotta vote? Oh, we gotta vote. I always forget to vote on it. Okay, those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?